The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. In these days, Jesus went up into the hills to pray. And all night he continued in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples. And he chose from them 12, whom he named apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, and Andrew his brother, and James and John and Philip, and Bartholomew and Matthew and Thomas, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon, who was called the Zealot, and Judas, the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. The Gospel of the Lord. Jesus had a big decision to make. He was surrounded by a large group of apostles, 72, the Gospel tells us. And he wanted to choose 12 special men who would be his apostles, who would be representing in a symbolic way the 12 tribes of Israel, because they were to be the beginning of a new people of God. They would represent the 12 foundation stones of the new temple of God that is referred to in the first reading. And from them he wanted to form his community, his church. It was a very important decision, and one that he needed to make in union with God the Father. It's not that he expected God to tell him, you choose him and him and him. He didn't expect God the Father to speak and to name the men that he was to choose as apostles. No, it had to be Jesus' own decision. In Mark's Gospel, we are told he chose those whom he wanted. They were to be his companions. He called those whom he wanted. And in John's Gospel, we see that Jesus knew what was in a man or a woman's heart. He didn't need anyone to tell him. He knew what was in a person. He was, after all, and is the searcher of hearts. But he wanted his decisions to be made in God. He wanted, so to speak, to bounce his decisions off the heart of God and see whether they resonated with the will of his Father, whether, in fact, what he was choosing was pleasing to God. Whether these foundation stones that he was choosing, that he was about to lay as the foundation of the church, that they would be aligned with God, that his decision would be what pleases God. This is what we call discernment. And it is something that every disciple of Christ, something that every disciple, every apostle, us, that should become part of our life. That we don't make major decisions in life without discerning whether this is in fact aligned with the will of God, aligned with the heart of God, whether it's something that warms the heart of God, something that pleases God. And we will know that not because God says, yes, that's what I want, but because we will feel the grace of God consoling us, giving us peace in the decisions that we are making, and not upsetting our conscience. This way of living our lives, this way of referring our decisions to God, should become part of who we are. And the psalm describes very beautifully the way God speaks. No, what does it say? No speech, no word, no voice is heard. Yet their sound goes forth to all the earth, their message to the utmost bounds of the earth. Day unto day conveys the message, and night unto night imparts the knowledge. It's this contemplative stance that gives us access to the heart of God. Not continually praying words and words and words and words and asking God to do this and asking God to do that. To look at the world that God has made. To look at a flower, to look at a tree, to look at the ocean. To listen to the sound of the breeze through the branches. To hear the sound of the birds singing. Just to let it resonate in your heart. Just to get in touch with the mystery of existence. And when we do that, God speaks to us in God's own way. And so today we celebrate the two people that he chose after his night in prayer. St. Simon the Zealot and St. Jude, the patron of hopeless cases.